Yes, welcome back. You're still watching Power Breakfast, and we continue the news review this morning. And just as we were on that break, Bwana Ken Okoth, MP for Kibra, joined us. Good morning, Bwana Okoth. Karibu sana. Good to see you this morning.
Good morning, team.
Yes.
Fred.
You missed out on a few discussions. At least we've handled the issue of hefty allowances for public servants and what SRC is planning to do with that. And proposal for a fund for free medical treatment for Kenyans was proposed by Nandi MP Alfred Keter. We now want to move to this story on the back page of the Daily Nation, where the headline reads, "Ruling a major reprieve for journalists." A verdict issued yesterday by the High Court is bound to be a reprieve for media houses and journalists after a law that sought to have them punished for their work was declared unconstitutional. While declaring that Section 194 of the Penal Code on criminal defamation violates the right to freedom of expression, the judge said it is bound to limit the freedom of expression, hence unreasonable in a democratic society. Now, in the age of social media, because most of it has to do with social media, especially because even after this law about misuse of a communication instrument was declared unconstitutional last year, anyone using social media to attack anyone else could still have faced charges, criminal charges in court, with a sentence of up to 2 years in prison. Now the High Court declared that unconstitutional. It does not mean that if you defame someone, you're not liable to some court proceedings. No, you can still be sued for damages, but it is not a crime.
Yeah.
It will not show on your record that you have a criminal record. Yeah. Do you think it's the right thing to do? Do you think this is the way to go?
I think sending people to jail for freedom of expression, for doing the work of journalists, especially exposing corruption, is not correct. It's as constitutional as you said. You wouldn't have the business of journalism at all in that sense. I think we still need some clear rules and civil cases for defamation and fines that make sense. Again, you don't want to put some, depending on the type of case, but you don't want to put extreme fines there. But if you're doing just malicious things and publishing false information, then the company and the writer doing that work, some people will just write things in this age of fake news to push traffic to their websites and get advertisement revenue. So you should be able to get the money out of that company for making up stories about situations, and they should be able to pay for it, but also the individual journalists behind the stories.
Of course, let me give you more details about this. The judgment was delivered in a case in which one Jacqueline Okuta and Mr. Jackson Jero were charged at Milimani and Kwale courts respectively. The action emanated from Facebook posts on the group Deadbeat Dads. I'm sure you've heard of that, Deadbeat Dads, where men who are said not to be taking care of their children, or their children were being exposed on Facebook. This actually has to do with Facebook, so it touches on a lot of people. Popularly known for busting men perceived to be negligent fathers, their legal battle started when they declined to remove a post that was considered offensive and were later sued for misusing a licensed telecommunications equipment. Now, this particular law, misusing a licensed telecommunications equipment, was declared unlawful last year by Justice Mombing Ngugi. But however, this individual still faced prosecution under the this law that has now been declared unconstitutional. You're a lawyer. Do you think this will change much?
Let me first comment 3 issues. Number one, the Deadbeat page of that Facebook, that account. I support his philosophy. To me, 100% I support his philosophy. And if anything ought to have been done to protect that Deadbeat page, I would support it. Because it tries to ensure people are responsible. When you get children and you fail to support them, surely you need to be exposed to the whole world, because I think responsibility of our children, to me, is something that should be taken very seriously. And to that extent, I support that page. I could have done anything to protect continuous publication of people who don't take care of their children. Number two, the philosophy of we allow free exchange of information, notwithstanding a situation where one or two instances people may lie about you, again needs to be protected. Number 3, as to whether when there is a transgression of that free exchange of information where people lie about you, or should you face a court action or under civil law or under criminal law? To me that's debatable. Yes, indeed, of course the civil aspect of it is still there, but what now the court has said is no longer there is the criminal aspect, but there is a disadvantage to it. It then means if you are a poor person who has been defamed, you have no means of going to court, because now the criminal process tends to protect the people who have no money to seek redress.
But
because
it would be argued that if at all you have no particular status in society,
you don't have a reputation to protect.
Yes.
No, I think that's unfair, because reputation is something that you build over time. If at all it has been killed when it is being when it's about to bad, then it means you can never become a prominent person. So to that extent, we all know civil cases tend to favor the people who have money to hire lawyers, and therefore to that it will therefore mean only the rich who are now have the remedy or the recourse of going to court. Of course the civil law does not say poor people cannot go to court, no, but practically it's quite an expensive procedure, and therefore I foresee it's only now, it's tend now to protect the people who have money. Again also, I have a philosophy personally from where I see it, with court with court tending to knock out laws that are made by Parliament. To me it's quite a long philosophical debate. I feel Parliament is a law-making institution, and courts should be conservative in the extent to which they tend to oversight Parliament and try to knock out laws which have been made by Parliament. Otherwise you may have a situation where the judges are making laws instead of interpreting them.
But in the process of interpreting laws, of course, if something seems to be in collision with the Constitution, like this one, the argument is that it seems to go against the freedom of expression, then the courts definitely do have a right to say that Parliament probably erred in enacting such a law.
I think the challenge we have in Kenya is that for the last 20 years or so, we've been clamoring for greater space for expression without the associated responsibility. And this is where we must also create a delicate balance between how much do we allow you to express yourself without injuring the reputation of others. The same Constitution does provide that you are only free to the extent that you don't infringe on the rights of other Kenyans or other individuals in our society. So what we need to be doing is to see how do we rein in some of the bad manners that we see in the social media, where people make strong allegations without the necessary proof. People create a lot of alarm saying so and so has passed on. They have killed almost practically every other person in our society. So some of this information ought to be sanctioned, so that somebody, by the time you're taking to a platform and making certain statements, you should be responsible to the extent that it is you who made those statements.
Bwana Kinokoth, of course, we witnessed a rise in social media activism and social media exposing a lot of ills or perceived ills, even in the private sector. Yesterday, for example, there was this trend, and that story is also on page 3 of the Daily Nation. There was a hashtag before Wambui married Bob. It has to do with the CEO of Safaricom, and some of these things can be very offensive for any person in the position of the Safaricom CEO. And we've seen so many bloggers come out, accuse not just Bob Collymore, so many other different CEOs claiming this and that. Cases are in court, but it's not criminal now. That has been declared unconstitutional, so you can only pursue it in a civil case.
I think two quick things. I mean, before Wambui married Bob, it's more like social gossip. It's nothing consequential.
If you read some of those tweets, there are very many accusations there as well.
Now, if you go, there's more serious stuff. If you say, for instance, Safaricom has done things that are corrupt, that are illegal, if you allege serious things about the character or the conduct of the person that you don't have proof of, then that's a problem. But speculating whether a celebrity couple are having a divorce or not, it's like we see this the whole time. It's tabloid stuff. I think you develop a thick skin in public life, and you shouldn't respond to things like that. But if you really have newspaper or a website publishing allegations that they can't prove of a criminal nature that really ruins someone's reputation and standing, that person has a right to go to court and get the damages. But again, the publisher of those shouldn't be taken to jail. Yeah.
So you don't agree with because you see a downside to this, that on Twitter now it's like people have been given a free hand. You can say anything about Monairon Kangata. You cannot take me to court on criminal charges. You can only start discussing if at all I have proof or not.
Yes, I think there is some danger. One, the idea of false news, I think now may be legitimized.
Fake news.
Fake news. Number two, we all know how some of these characters can really be unfair to people, and they talk ill and lies about you. And now that it only takes a civil case to seek remedy, which is quite a long process, I think it can be very unfair. And some of these social media things, they are quite influential. They can treat an election, they can sway opinion, and to that extent I think we need to check it up. To me, there is a key downside. There is a major downside on it. But and by the way, for us politicians, it is quite important because we are elected purely on the basis of reputation, and therefore if at all people can go and talk ill of you and you have no remedy at all, or the remedy is quite a very long process, I think I foresee some danger.
As a lawyer, how hard is it to pursue a civil matter as opposed to a criminal one? Because probably if it's a criminal offense, thinking you can be arrested as police investigate.
One, in a criminal case, in terms of initiation, is as simply as walking to a police station, you file a complaint, and probably they record some statements, and then you are arrested and taken to court. That can take, let's say, 1 or 2 days. For a civil case, the first thing you do is to do a demand letter. When you do a demand letter, you use your private means to even trace where this respondent is. But for a criminal case, they use the state machinery to trace you. So, if at all they are able to trace you, you'll be given 14 days or 7 days probably to retract, or even probably to respond.
But the damage has already been done.
If you fail to do that, if you fail to reply, then you go to court, you file court pleadings, and when then they will trace you again. It's another process of trying to trace you, because you are not using state machinery. Upon the interest, you are given another, I think, 14 days for you to reply, to file a defense. You then file a defense, another 14 days probably for filing defense, and then now you start a long process of exchange of pleading.
So it means, in effect, bloggers and all these people have been using social media to defame people, how actually are freer now. They're no longer scared of arrest and anything like that.
Yes, I would foresee, to me, this is freedom. But again, as I see, there are also positives. We can say also, we politicians, we must also have what we call a thick skin. If you don't have a thick skin in politics, I don't think this is the business for you. You should also allow a little bit of being insulted. Isn't it? People talking lies about you. To me, I think you been a victim of. Yes, it is celebration. It is part of the game. What do you think about that?
A lot of times, even this, I think the way our media and communication is moving is so fast in the digital and electronic space. It is really going ahead of traditional media, which has certain standards of verification and seems to be slower. This is like the fast food of news, when anyone can just tweet anything. I mean, just the other day someone said Ken Okoth is in Wipe. Last year they had said Ken Okoth is in Jubilee. So, of course, for different purposes, propaganda and things like that, you know, Kibra politics is getting hotter and hotter and hotter. And, you know, so somebody thinks, oh, let's insinuate he's not in his party and things like that. But you find a way to respond to it, and sometimes you have to know what not to respond to or dignify. But what Irungu Kangata has also mentioned is there is also a dimension of people who are blogging false things and spreading them depending on their level of influence, and they're using that to extort. So somebody holds, you know, I will threaten you and I will write bad things about you if you don't meet with me and sort it out. And they're like, you know, if it's not true, it's not true. Go ahead and write.
Have you been a victim?
Well, not a victim, but I've been a very keen observer of what happens in the social media. As my colleagues have said, as a politician, you do expect a lot of things will be said about you. Otherwise, when nobody talks about you, then you are gone. But let's take cognizance of one fact, that the social media is a huge constituency that is almost overtaking the conventional media. And therefore, whatever happens there, we must watch as Kenyans with keen interest, in the sense that you destroy people's reputations, you destroy people's families, you destroy people's livelihoods, because some of the issues in the social media, they move to the conventional press, they move to workplace, and some of the people are destroyed, some people's careers are destroyed in the process. So I think, and also remember the Rwanda situation of genocide. It was done by FM stations, which were the level of the social media today. So we can generate a lot of tribal hate through the social media. You can generate a lot of animosity through the social media. So now that we're going for elections, it is important that we plead with all Kenyans that let us be responsible. Let us not destroy the fragile nation that we have today.
Yes, and of course, as you said, because of the intricacies and the long time that it will take to file a civil case, if at all someone offends you on social media, or I decide to run a campaign against Bonerungu Kangata, and it is an election year, you do not have time to start chasing me in court. You'd rather just ignore it and move on. Yet I'm actually working towards bringing you down. That could be the resultant effect, don't you think?
Yes, the other day some people were spreading rumors that I'm no longer vying for the Senate position. And people called me several, oh, hey, we hear you're no longer vying for this position. So it is a very strong entity. It is now overtaking the so-called mainstream media, as my colleague says. But as to whether the state doesn't have an interest so that it can bring criminal sanction against people who abuse it, I'm not so sure. I'm not so very convinced. And by the way, to that extent, I think our judiciary is overreaching itself. It appears to be legislating from the bench.
Let's move on now to another headline here, and it's on the front page of it's been given prominence on the front page of the Standard. Kenyans want more teachers, not gadgets. It's an education survey on page 4 of the Standard. The government's efforts to connect primary schools to electricity and distribute e-learning tablets seems not to have impressed Kenyans. A new survey by Ipsos revealed that a majority of Kenyans instead prefer that the government hires more teachers, buys books, and improves infrastructure in public institutions.
I think technologies can never replace good teachers. In Kenya, what we need are well-motivated teachers who enter the career by choice, not to enter the career because they had no choice. Some of our teachers enter that career because their dream was to do something else, and then they didn't pass the exam, and so teaching was the second option, and they don't like it, they are not committed to it as professionals, and they're just going through the motions to make the money, and many of them end up doing other businesses or being absentee teachers, which hurts the whole education system and which hit our children. I think we need to think very carefully about serious professional remuneration of our teachers, and to attract only the best into that career. In places like Singapore or Finland, you don't go into teaching or education just with a C- or a C+. You have to be an A student to go into the teaching career, and you get sponsored through your university, and you get rewarded as a professional teacher. But in this country, we've been treating teachers like enemies, like second-class people. The respect and the prestige that a teaching career used to have in the 70s, even the early 80s, is not there. Now it has really gone down. We need to think as a nation, what do we do to turn this around? There's a crisis, 80,000 teacher shortages. Even if you give every child in this country an iPad or a laptop or whatever it is, but they don't see a teacher in their school, they don't know how to read and write. They don't have a teacher to guide them through the material, to connect it through the curriculum proper. So I think technology can only add on to what the teacher is doing, but it can never replace the teacher. And I think we have to be very careful with that and see how do we get in. And it will require even a complicated negotiation with our unions, because our unions have been very adamant. 3 years ago, there was a proposal from the government to hire contract teachers. So maybe you hire a teacher for 5 years, someone who's willing and qualified as a bachelor's degree to come in and teach for 5 years and then move on. Yes. But the unions were adamant. All teachers must be hired on permanent and pensionable terms. Well, we now we still have a shortage of 80,000 teachers. 83,000 to be exact. So we have to ask, are the unions serious about getting more teachers in front of the classroom, or are they only interested in the the money they will raise for the unions?
Yes.
But we really need to get more teachers in front of children, and we have to be innovative. And I think, the TSC, the Education Committee, the Budget Committee in Parliament, the unions, we have to come to a compromise and put the children first and see how do we put more teachers who are qualified, well paid, in front of children, and then technology just adds into it. Yes. If you give a kid a laptop and they're studying under a tree, and they are hungry, they have no food, what does a laptop mean to that child, or an iPad in Mandera when they haven't eaten for a week?
Bwana Kangata, of course, when Uhuru Kenyatta and William Ruto are running for president, one laptop per child was the rallying call. It was the main thing. I remember it was the main topic in their campaigns. They've managed to do that to some extent, but now this year that they're seeking re-election, a survey comes out and people are saying those were not very important. We need more teachers. What does that say about the Jubilee administration's policy?
Well, to me, at times as a leader, you lead the people and the people follow you. To me, I think the proposal by Jubilee makes a lot of sense. Because look at one of the findings of that survey. They say people want more books. But these gadgets are about making books obsolete. In fact, it's going to make the content of books to be readily available to more children. So, in terms of more teachers, these gadgets are going to make our teachers more efficient.
But the teachers are not there. We have a shortage. Instead of the government addressing that shortage, they're focusing more on the technology, bringing in laptops and tablets.
But you see what will happen? The existing teachers, in my own opinion, will now be able to handle more children because the technology now allows them to do so. They can now even get a higher salary because now their skills have been upgraded and they are handling more workload but in a more efficient manner, and therefore they can be given more money. And therefore, to me, the idea of laptops is a win-win for everyone. It is a win for the teachers. They will handle more work in a more efficient manner and therefore qualify for higher salaries. For children, it is going to lower their costs. You don't have to buy books. Books will be readily available in the gadget. So in short, to me, those findings, they are, how do I put it? They don't rhyme with our objectives. Yes, they exist. Well, let me give you, it is like saying, assuming people want to bring computers or ATMs in the banks, and then you ask bank employees, what's your view on bringing computers? You'd imagine what they will say. But in real sense, yes, the beneficiary of those computers will not only be the bank employees, but even the public. So to me, technology benefits everyone.
But it means
teachers, children,
problem,
public.
It means there's a problem, there's a disparity between the Jubilee administration's understanding of the problem and their reality on the ground. People don't want just gadgets, they want more teachers. The Jubilee administration believes the gadgets will work better, according to Bwana Kangata. Well, if for example, you got a chance to form government, how differently would you do it?
Well, I will start not with every laptop for a child. I will start with computer labs. It is a more efficient way of using resources, and those computers can be used by many children. So that would be the fundamental approach that we are going to give as NASA when we form government. Number two, I think apart from the fact that a teacher is supposed to pass certain information to the child, a teacher is also a role model. Therefore, a child cannot exist in exclusion. That is the fundamental principle of training a teacher, so that he is able to understand child psychology and take through the children through certain programs of education. The problem with computers and laptops, they are not emotional, and they do not take into consideration the emotions of the children. As a trained teacher, you are supposed to look at your class in so many forms. One, the fast learners, slow learners, and those who are in the middle. And you are supposed to accommodate the aspirations of all so that you take them through the program. Because we believe, as teachers, there is no stupid child. All children are intelligent. It's only that the level of learning that matters from one child to the other.
Okay. Bonokoth, I believe you wanted to say something. You totally disagree with what
I totally disagree with Irungu, because Irungu was presenting education as if it's any other business like manufacturing, where you increase efficiencies on an absolute level based on new technologies. That is just the farthest thing from the truth. The fact of the matter is that education is a human enterprise, as Honorable Kirwa has just said, and adding in technology helps with some marginal returns and efficiency, but not absolutely. So what he is trying to say here, that a teacher will be able to teach more children, is just not true. I have the biggest school in the country is in my constituency, Olympic Primary School. There are 4,300 children, 4,300 children, with only 42 teachers from the government. Even when you give the teachers laptops and the children laptops, the children are 100 children. And I'll tell you why his argument is wrong. Go to a school like Brookhouse, Makini, Braeburn, any of these schools. You'll see the student-teacher ratio is 1 to 20, maximum 1 to 25, no more than 30 children in a class, or parents will take their children out. And those children don't have one laptop per child in those schools. They have a computer lab, and even when they have access to gadgets like iPads at home, it does not replace the attention of a teacher who knows amongst these 25 children who needs more attention, who's not doing well today, who struggles in. So let us just be honest with ourselves that the education of the masses of the children in our public system cannot be reduced to thinking industrially. And the fact of the matter is, maybe Jubilee has to be honest with us. Why the obsession with the delivery of these laptops? Is it just to award a major tender? Why can't they listen to educators and listen and see what are the other priorities? Why give? I mean, there's a picture there in the paper.
Kenyans in general.
Children are sitting down on the floor without desks, and you've given them this
you see,
according to this
and I can tell you, you said that they've achieved that goal somehow. In my constituency, I have 9 public primary schools. Not one single gadget has been delivered to the children of Kibra constituency. So I might ask myself, here we are Kibra in the shadow of the Jogo House. We are not getting even these laptops here. So how are they being distributed, and when are we going to see them? But at least I'm happy with our CBF. We've already put computer labs in all those schools, so our children are not left behind.